Hello, welcome to Philosophy Roulette. This is number 205, where we read and review philosophy. So, let's see what is going on today. We've got new stuff, all new items. So, see how long I've been up. Okay, new books, not so much. Aesthetica preprint, interesting. Don't know what that is. Is that like a journal itself? Or is that like something going on? Let's see. It is a journal, it looks like. Let's click on this, see what happens. Huh. It's in Italian. Okay, whatever. That's cool though, but yeah. No agriculture and human values. Empirical, nope, running away from that. Bioethics, though, is cool. Analysis. I love you, analysis. Please be here is the question. You are here? Oh my god. Makes my life so easy. So, this is what we're going to read. Because it's an analysis and it's short. And it says it's here. So, let's find out if it is actually here. Because once in a blue moon, it's just, what's it called? And it doesn't look like this is all logic. No, okay. Well, we got some symbols, because, let's see, are we all symbols? No. Okay, that is awesome. So, how important are possessed reasons? I wonder if that's like a demonic possession, seeing as it's, the spooky month. Halloween coming. If you are in the chat, you can always type !paper and the link will pop right back up. If you're here now, you can grab it right there. For all my other viewers, I do have a backlog of requests that I will get to eventually. I've just been very busy as of late. So I will get to that stuff. Just I want to get another paper in because, I haven't been here for a few days. And, yeah. So now I'm going... have a regular old roulette. Might as well. Okay, so here we go. How important are possessed reasons by Jonathan Way of University of Southampton. Please cite published version. Central to Errol Lord's excellent book is the notion of a possessed reason. Objective normative reasons. So it's not a ghost or a possessed soul. That's really disappointing. Oh well. Not a Halloween paper. For Lord, rationality is a matter of correctly responding to possessed reasons, so those are objective and normative. What rationality requires and permits is that we react in ways that are appropriate given our possessed reasons, and we ought, full stop, to react in ways that are decisively supported by our possessed reasons. Thus, for Lord, possessed, objective and normative reasons are very important indeed. Part of the appeal and interest of this picture is its systematicity. Lord offers a unified and powerful story about rationality as part of a broader reasons fundamentalist picture. Nonetheless, the devil resides... Oh, cool, so we do have the devil here. The devil resides to a significant extent in the details, so it's worth examining the elements of Lord's picture on their own terms. In this paper, I'll look at three such elements. In Section 1, I offer objections to his accounts of rational requirement. In Section 2, I offer objections to a central argument for his view of what we ought to do. If successful, these objections suggest that possessed reasons are not as important as Lord thinks. In Section 3, I consider his account of possessed reasons itself. Okie dokie. So I guess the way this paper is set up is basically, as they said here, we're looking at this one argument here of possessed reasons and why they're good. And so, again, by the title, how important are possessed reasons? So, 1. Coherence. Lord proposes the following account of what rationality permits and requires. Rational permission. What it is for a reaction R of agent A to be rationally permitted is for the reasons A possesses for R to be sufficient. So not necessarily, but just sufficient. So yeah, you could have other things that might be needed, but these are the ones that once you have them they are sufficient for that reaction. So what we got here is the reaction has to have sufficiency. What's a little okay, so in reaction is a cover term. I was wondering what that was. Actions, beliefs, intentions. So it could be a bunch of different things. Rational requirement. What it is for a reaction R of agent A to be rationally required is for the reasons A possesses for R to be decisive. What the heck does decisive mean? What it is for a reaction R of agent A to be rationally required is for the reasons of A to possesses for R to be decisive. So, like, is this just necessary and sufficient by decisive? I'm not sure, but like, if they're sufficient and then they are, so this is permitted and required. So this must be necessary and sufficient, or something to that effect. So it's the difference between permitted and required here. So this is the difference between these things here. So, okay. We'll see how this plays out. And when watching, feel free to ask questions. I'll try to answer them, but it's my first time reading it too. A central challenge to these accounts is to accommodate the apparent platitude that it is irrational to be incoherent. For example, to have inconsistent beliefs or intentions. That challenge is to accommodate the apparent platitude that it is irrational to be incoherent. You know, I'm not even like so sure about that. What's to say? Here, I don't know this thing, because basically you can get like a preface paradox too. I mean, all of our beliefs, in some sense, I don't think anyone is maximally coherent. So why would we want to even accommodate this in a I mean, metaphysically we might have to, but like practically I think it's wrong. So I'm not sure about that anyway. We'll see. Different forms of incoherence raise this challenge in different ways. I will focus on one of the most problematic cases, at least often is irrational have inconsistent intentions. Okay, fine. To intend A, to intend B, and to believe that you cannot both A and B. But it seems possible, indeed common, for your possessed reasons to sufficiently support these reactions. Sure. To take a standard example, C36, maybe that's reference 36. You might possess sufficient reasons to intend to go to law school next year, and sufficient reasons to intend to go to graduate school in philosophy next year, and decisive reasons to believe you can't do both. I'll take this as a read. I'll take this as read. Nonetheless, it would be irrational to both intend to go to law school and intend to go to graduate school. Lord's account of what irrationality permits and requires doesn't seem to generate this result. Lord's solution to this problem is to propose intentions attenuate. When you have decisive reasons to believe that you can't both psi and phi, or phi and psi, intending to do phi attenuates the weight of your reasons to intention to psi. In cases where you would otherwise possess sufficient reasons to intend to phi and to intend to psi, this attenuation makes your reason to intend to psi insufficient. This seems question begging, but let's see what the author says. Because, I mean, who gets to decide which one's phi and psi? So it's like, well, one of them is going to attenuate the other one, I guess. But then picking one is weird. So before forming an intention between law school and grad school, you might have sufficient reasons for each intention. But once you form an intention, things change. Once you intend, say, to go to law school, this attenuates your reason to intend to go to graduate school. They will no longer be sufficient. Rather, Lord suggests your reasons against intending to go to grad school will be decisive. Thus, you are rationally required not to intend to go to graduate school. Importantly, it doesn't follow that your reasons to intend to go to law school are now decisive. This is important as Lord emphasizes. This is important because, as Lord emphasizes, it seems rationally permissible to change your mind, at least prior to taking any significant steps towards going to law school. So your reasons against intending to go to law school must be weighty enough to make it rationally permissible to not intend to go to law school. To explain this, Lord suggests that your reasons to intend to go to graduate school are also reasons against intending to go to law school. These reasons are not attenuated. Thus, you possess sufficient reason to intend to go to law school, but also sufficient reasons not to intend to go to law school. And so it is rationally permissible to both maintain your intention to go to graduate school and also to drop it. This story is ingenious, but I have my doubts. An initial worry is that cases in which intention's attenuant applies look very different from other more familiar examples in which reasons to intend are attenuated. I think there are three main types of case. So let me just get this straight. Basically, so you have weighty reasons, but they sort of outweigh each other. But by having weighty reasons, you can sort of attenuate your understanding of all your other reasons. So this is a very good idea to do one thing, and you're very serious about that. But you're also very serious about other stuff. So having two very serious intentions sort of brings down either one of them so you don't have to do one. It's not, neither of them are decisive anymore. So I can understand that. Again, I don't have to do this author's work for them, but it just seems sort of ad hoc to me. And what I mean by that is, why things bring it down. It seems reasonable, but again, how do you pick one or the other? It just seems very, maybe the author will get to it, but it just seems sort of arbitrary. And then what's the point of making the distinction if the solution is arbitrary? Okay, but let's see what the author has to say. First, there are cases in which it is natural to say that reasons to intend are attenuated because reasons to act are attenuated. To take some standard examples, the fact that the exhibition is on for several more months attenuates your reason to see it today, and so your reasons to intend to see it today. The fact that and so your reasons to intend to see it today. So yeah, if you've got a lot of time, you don't need to see it today. That's fine. The fact that someone is culpable for getting themselves into trouble might attenuate your reason to help them, and so your reasons to intend to help them. All right, yeah. So our cases are not like this. It's not particularly plausible that intending to go to law school makes the case for going to graduate school less strong. In any case, well, it might. But yeah, it might not. In any case, I don't think Lord can say that the attenuation works in this way. That's because if intending to go to law school made your reasons to go to grad school insufficient, then your reasons to go to law school would be decisive. And if your reasons to go to law school were decisive, then it would be a mistake to change your mind and drop your intention to go to law school. So Lord's view must be that intending an option attenuates the reason for intending an alternative without attenuating the reasons for taking that alternative. Okay. Second, there are cases in which intending an option is not needed for taking that option. For example, you probably won't insult your students in class today, even if you don't intend not to insult your students in class today. It's plausible that this attenuates your reasons to intend not to insult your students, though not your reasons not to insult your students. But our cases are clearly not like this. Intending to go to law school doesn't make it that you will go to graduate school regardless of whether you intend to do so. Yeah, so if you have a negative in there, it doesn't help your case. Third, there are cases in which intending an option will be ineffective. Excuse me. Suppose, for example, that it would be unlikely to stick with an intention to run a marathon. You would find the training too much of a hassle. You might think that this attenuates your reason to intend to run the marathon. So this is, so when intention is not enough. But wouldn't Lord just say, well, then you didn't have sufficient reason to begin with. It wasn't, whatever that sufficient was to begin with. Our cases are in some ways like this. If you intend to go to law school, intending to go to grad school does become less likely to be effective given the conflict of intentions. However, if the ineffectiveness of intending to run a marathon attenuates your reasons to intend to run the marathon, it also surely attends your reasons to run the marathon. Otherwise, you might have decisive reasons to run the marathon, but insufficient reasons to intend to run. That is not a plausible verdict. Again, though, it's important for Lord's view that intending an option only attenuates the reasons to intend alternative options. Okay. So intentions attenuate doesn't look like any of the more familiar examples of attenuators for reasons to intend. This is not in itself damning. Lord might have discovered a new category. To assess this, we need to consider his case for intentions attenuate. Okay, so basically it has to, only attenuates the reasons to intend alternative options. Yeah, because it's you can't, if one just outweighed the other directly, then it would just be, that would be decisive. So you have to one has to outweigh some of the reasons to the other ones. But what the author just did here is they went through a few cases to show that we might not think that this, with very weighty decisions, being able to poke at one or two of the reasons actually doesn't do much for you. Because if that was all it would take, then it would have been a decisive option anyway. So, basically, since what Lord wants it to do, it seems a little not strong enough to do. So the author now is going to go over and see what else the Lord has to say about this before getting to their account, I guess. Lord's main argument is abductive. Okay, this word here, abductive, that's a little scary that you're using abductive inference at this point. I mean, usually people just say inductive, but this is argument. Quite often, abductive means argument to the best answer, although that's not a very... It could mean a few different things, but people mean an argument to the best explanation. That's a very dangerous way to take things. But anyway, that's my problem, not the author's. Intensions attenuate explains a particularly complicated data set. By this, Lord means that it explains how we can have cases like the choice between law school and graduate school, in which 1, prior to forming any intention, it is rationally permissible to intend phi, and rationally permissible to intend psi. 2, once you form an intention to phi or an intention to psi, forming the other intention is rationally impermissible. But 3, it remains rationally permissible to drop the intention you formed. However, it is not clear that Lord's view does capture all the data. In particular, it is not clear that Lord can maintain 3. As noted, Lord holds that once you intend, say, to go to law school, it remains rationally permissible to drop this intention because you still possess sufficient reason against intending to go to law school. That is why your reasons to intend to go to law school are only sufficient and not decisive, even though you lack sufficient reason to intend to go to graduate school. What are these sufficient reasons against intending to go to law school? According to Lord 32 to 33, they are provided by the same fact that are reasons to intend to go to grad school. For example, these might be your love of philosophy, the independence promised by an academic career, and your aptitude for teaching. Okay, so basically the reasons you're going to do it are the reasons that you have. While we can grant that these are reasons against intending to go to law school, it is clear that they are primarily reasons to intend to go to grad school. They are only reasons against intending to go to law school because they are reasons to intend to go to graduate school, and going to graduate school is incompatible with going to law school. Thus, these facts are only derivative reasons against intending to go to law school. Sure. However, it is very plausible that derivative reasons are attenuated when the reasons from which they derive, their source reasons, are attenuated. The intuitive thought here is that insofar as the case for a reaction entirely derives from the case for another, weakening the case for the latter will weaken the case for the former too. This thought is borne out by examples. You might have reasons to save now just because you have reason to spend later. But if your reasons to spend later are attenuated, your reasons to save now are attenuated too. Or you might have reasons to believe the conclusion just because you have read the reasons to believe the premises. Again, if your reasons to believe the premises are attenuated, your reason to believe the conclusion are attenuated too. Sometimes, yeah, it's like exactly what the connection is between premise and conclusion, or the reason why save now, spend later, what the connection is there too. Again, it matters, but the point is reasonable that if you have reasons and conclusions, like a reaction, what they're calling a reaction here, it's like if it derives from what reaction derives from something, if one gets changed, then the other will too. This makes trouble for Lord. It implies that if your reasons to go into graduate school are attenuated, and your reasons against going to law school entirely derive from your reasons to intend to go to graduate school, then your reasons against intending to go to law school are attenuated too. In that case, Lord cannot maintain that you are rationally permitted to drop the intention to go to law school because you possess sufficient reason against this intention. Intentions attenuate, thus fails to capture the data Lord is interested in. So wait. Against intending to go to law school or something. Yeah, see, if the reasons are like sort of intertwined, then you have weird against intending to go to law school too. Wait, why would you, if the reasons to intend to go to grad school are attenuated, so those go down, and your reasons against intending to go to law school entirely drive your reasons to intend to go to grad school? Why would your reasons for law school entirely drive from your reasons to intend to go to graduate school? That's a little weird. Because why would they be linked if they're especially? Well, of course, they actually could be linked. I mean, they're pretty similar things, law school and maybe philosophy graduate school. So the fact that you're attenuating one does attenuate the other. But this seems a little weird to say entirely right here. Because why would law school entirely derive from reasons to go to graduate school? I mean, if they were related, their derivation was related, then this would. I mean, I think the point still holds, but this entirely here sort of confuses me. Whatever, the point holds. Like, if the reasons you're doing one overlap with the reasons you're doing the other, then if attenuating one doesn't actually mean anything, because it's gonna affect both. If this is right, Lord's main case for intentions attenuate fails. Indeed, intentions attenuate generates mistaken predictions, and so should be rejected. I conclude that we should be skeptical about intentions attenuate, and thus be skeptical that Lord's account can explain the irrationality of intention inconsistency. This is a serious problem for his account of what rationally requires and permits. Okay. 2. Ought. I now turn to Lord's account of what we ought, full stop, to do, or as Lord sometimes says, our full stop obligations. So, as a metaphysical necessity, some sort of deontological must. Lord holds that our full stop obligations are determined by the reasons we possess. Lord's view is thus a version of perspectivism. That is, he holds that what you ought to do depends on only some of the reasons there are, that those that you possess and so fall within your epistemic sphere or perspective. Perspectivism contrasts with objectivism, the view that what you ought to do is determined by all the reasons that there are independently of your perspective. An important part of Lord's case for perspectivism and against objectivism comes from the following argument. 1. If the reasons in some set S make it the case that you ought to phi, then you can phi because of the members of S. Well, just because makes it you ought, I guess this ought implies can here or something. Yeah. 2. If you can phi because of the members of S, then you possess the members of S. C. If the reasons in some set S make it the case that you ought to phi, then you possess the members of S. Okay, so if you have the reasons, and then that means you can phi, you can make that decision. And if you can do it, then you possess it. And if the reasons in that make it the case, then you possess all of the members of S. Okay. All right, whatever. 2 states prima facie plausible conditions on being guided by reasons. If a fact is a reason for you to phi, but you do not possess that reason, for instance because you are not in position to know the fact, then plausibly you are not able to phi in light of that fact. I shall grant this. Yeah. What about 1? This states a version of the appealing idea that our obligations must be action guiding. Lord understands this idea in a specific way. If you deny 1, then you are committed to thinking that there are cases where the members of S make it the case that you ought to phi, and it's impossible for you to phi and be credit worthy for phiing. I think this is deeply implausible. It's implausible because it robs our full stop obligations of a certain kind of action guidingness. If we cannot perform the actions we are obligated to perform in a way that deserves credit, then those obligations are not action guiding. Lord's case for 1 thus rests on credit. If the reasons in some set S make it the case that you ought to phi, then you can phi in a way that is credit worthy. Okay, so basically, you have to do things for the right reasons, and then you get credit for those reasons if they're the right ones. In earlier work, Daniel Whiting and I present a counterexample to credit. Doctor. A doctor is deciding whether to give drug A or drug B to a patient who has a painful and fatal disease. She knows that A will completely cure the patient, relieving all the patient's suffering and saving her life, and B will not save the life of her patient but will relieve the patient's suffering. The doctor also knows that if she tries giving one drug, she'll be unable to give the other. However, though she is in no position to know this, and despite evidence to the contrary, the doctor is unable to give A. As it happens, the doctor who gives B to the patient for the reasons that will relieve her suffering. We claim that the doctor ought to give drug B but cannot give drug B in a credit-worthy way. So this is using some sort of objective reason because they could have given A but they didn't know it. Lord agrees that the doctor ought to give drug B. He denies that she cannot give drug B in a credit-worthy way. In fact, Lord thinks the doctor does give drug B in a credit-worthy way. However, he grants the doctor only deserves partial credit. While the act she performs expresses some goodwill in virtue of the fact it shows concern for the patient's suffering, she also expresses a lack of goodwill in virtue of showing indifference towards the patient's life. But she didn't know that she could give A? That's weird. Or despite evidence to the contrary. Though she was in no position to know, and despite evidence to the contrary, the doctor is unable to give A. I want to make 2 points about this response. First, as Lord acknowledges, it shows that credit must be understood in a particular way. In particular, Lord must hold partial credit, not full credit. If the reasons in some set S make it the case that you ought to phi, then you can phi for those reasons in a way that is fully creditworthy. That's full credit. And partial credit is, if the reasons in some set S make it the case that you ought to phi, then you can phi for those reasons in some way that is partially creditworthy. Alright, so this is if it's worth doing badly too. This is problematic because it seems to me Lord's argument for credit concerns full credit, not partial credit. Lord supports credit by appeal to putative cases in which you ought to phi, but you do not possess the reasons that determine this obligation and are not able to phi in a creditworthy way. Consider Judith Thompson's case in which, due to an unforeseeable series of coincidences, flipping the light switch when you get home will electrocute your neighbor. As an objectivist, Thompson thought that you ought not flip the light switch. Lord objects. There's simply no way you can do what you ought to do for the right reasons. The only way you can do what you ought to do is by doing something idiotic. There's no way for the right makers of your act to get legitimate grip on you. But we're supposed to believe they require you to stumble around in the dark all the same. This is dubious. However, similar concerns can be raised about the possibility of cases in which you ought to phi but can only phi in a way that deserves partial credit. When the doctor gives drug B, they're doing something grossly indifferent. And if it is dubious that we can be obliged to be idiotic, it is surely also dubious that we can be obliged to be grossly indifferent. Indeed, it is easy to change the example so that giving drug B is idiotic. For instance, we can add that the doctor's primary aim is to save the patient's life. So they should have been able to give A, but they don't. And they're being grossly idiotic. Thus, Lord's argument for credit does not support partial credit. If Lord agrees that doctor undermines full credit and thus wants to defend his perspectivism by appeal to partial credit, he needs to provide new arguments for partial credit. The second point about Lord's response to doctor is that we do not speak to some more general problems that the case raises for his views. As we've seen, Lord holds that what we ought to do and what we are rationally required to do are both determined by the reasons we possess. This means that doctor bears on Lord's account of rational requirements as well as account on obligation. In fact, doctor raises 3 problems for this account. First, it is not plausible that the doctor is rationally required to give drug B. Again, this is perhaps clearest if we add the doctor's aim to save the patient's life. In that case, it is plainly irrational to give drug B. Given the doctor's evidence, it is clear that this will not achieve her rational aim. Second, and relatedly, the case undermines a principle that plays an important role in Lord's argument. Whenever you are ex ante rational in phying, you can be ex post rational in phying. Applied to the doctor, this implies the doctor must be able to rationally give drug B, but the doctor is not able to rationally give drug B. Although she can give drug B for the reason that make it rational to give drug B, she is not able to give drug B in a way that is sensitive to the weight of this reason. Given her evidence and aims, she is not able to give drug B in the way that would be sensible, which would be saving the person's life. Third, it is clear that it is rational for the doctor to believe that she ought to give drug A. She knows that drug A will completely cure the patient and relieve all of her suffering, while drug B will only relieve the patient's suffering. And she has misleading, but we can stipulate sufficient evidence that she can give drug A. If the doctor is nonetheless rationally required to give drug B, this is a case in which it is rational for the doctor to be acratic. But acrasia is a paradigmatic form of irrational incoherence. Indeed, Lord is keen to show that his view can explain why acrasia is irrational. I conclude that Lord's response to doctor is unsuccessful. As things stand, then we should reject credit. Since one of Lord's central arguments for perspectivism and for his view that obligations are determined by possessed reasons rests on credit, this argument thus fails. We have also seen that doctor raises problems for Lord's account of what rationality requires. Okay, so basically, what happened in this? It shows that, even if... This again is sort of an objectivist argument against the perspectivism. Because there's things going on here that the doctor doesn't know about. And so although the doctor is doing what is objectively the only option, is giving drug B, they didn't know that, and so they should have at least attempted to give drug A. And so this is messing it up because from the perspectivist's point of view, Lord's point of view, you want to say, well, the doctor did the right thing because they did the best they could. But since they didn't know they did the best they could, they were being idiotic, it makes them irrational. So then you've got this irrationality thing going. I worry that there's some sort of a begging the question going on here in this setup, because we never know that you can't give a drug. Like, it's one of these weird sort of like metaphysical stipulations that is completely impossible. I mean, sufficient evidence that she can give. She has misleading that she has sufficient evidence that she can give drug A, but like she still gives drug B. It seems very strange. So I worry that there's something a little funky in the setup, but the author is probably right here. Okay, possession. I now turn to Lord's account of possessed reasons. Possession, and not demonic possession, which is really disappointing. I always hope for exciting things in philosophy, and all I get is rationality. What it is for an agent A to possess R as a reason to phi provided by fact F is for A to be in a position to manifest knowledge about how to use R to phi. Okay, so what it is for an agent to have possessed some reason as a reason for phi is provided by fact F is for A to be in a position to manifest knowledge about how to use R to phi. Okay, this is interesting. I mean, there's a fact F here. Well, that's kind of an interesting thing. You'd be like, fact F is for A. So there's a fact about A. This is one of the book's most distinctive and interesting features. Many have assumed that possession is a purely epistemic or doxastic condition, that possessing reasons is simply a matter of, for example, believing or rationally believing or knowing the facts which provide reasons. Lord makes a powerful case that such conditions are insufficient. If Lois knows that the fish on her plate contains salmonella, but she believes that salmonella is entirely harmless bacteria, she may not possess the fact that her fish contains salmonella as a reason not to eat. Given her background belief, this fact does not bear negatively on the rational merits of eating the fish, but bearing on the rationality of our reactions is just what possessed reasons are supposed to do. The central notion in possession is that of knowing how to use reason R to phi. It does not seem to me that this is an ordinary notion, one that gets much expression in ordinary talk or in thought, so we need some guidance on how it is to be understood. Yeah, this is how to. You have to knowing how inside one of these things. It's maybe it's unfair. I mean, this seems like a pretty normal thing that you have to know how to do something to properly do it. What is it to use a reason? A natural answer is that you have to use a reason R to phi just when R is your reason for phi-ing. However, knowing how to use reason R to phi is not simply a matter of being able to phi in light of R. Knowing how to use a reason is competence. It disposes one to get things right. Yeah, this is a knowing how to do something is like the proper functioning of that reason. This suggests that knowing how to use a reason is knowing how to use that reason in the right way. This raises an initial worry. It is not clear that there need be any such thing as the right way to use a reason. After all, reasons can be outweighed. And when they are, it doesn't seem like there is any right way to use them. Consider the good version of Lois's case, in which she does appropriately respond to the fact that her fish contains salmonella by refraining from eating the fish. Here it might nonetheless be true that the fish will be tasty, which is a reason to eat it. What is the right way for her to use this reason? It is not by eating the fish for that reason. That would be a terrible idea. Perhaps she should give some weight to this fact. Hey, Bubba Bloop, what's up? How you doing? I'm reading some philosophy. Oh, well, I'm happy you stopped by. I mean, you are up at all times of night. I see in the morning when I get your messages that you've like gone live. I'm like, oh dear Lord, I missed his stream. So yeah, but okay, cool. Thanks for coming by. This is a paper on discussing reasons and intentions, and so it's like what actually counts as a good reason for doing something? Like, do I want to play Minesweeper right now? Why should I intend to play Minesweeper right now? It always seems like a good idea. Well, that's fine. I try to catch it sometimes. Sometimes I just lurk. But yeah. Oh yeah, speaking of, you have to tell me what time we're streaming next week. Yeah, uh I'll get on the Discord thing. So, yep. Yeah. Yeah, schedule. Yeah. Let me know about the schedule too. Okie doke. Okay, I'll take a look. I didn't. No, I've been busy last few days. I haven't looked at anything. So, but I will. Wait, real quick. Yeah, I can wait. I mean, do I want to eat the fish here? Not by eating the fish for that reason. That would be a terrible idea to eat the poisoned fish. Perhaps you should give some weight to this fact, or to the extent desire or be motivated to eat the fish by this fact. This seems dubious too. It might be fine for her not to give any thought to the fact that the fish is tasty. CJ and Draw are down for 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I can do 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Although I suspect it's is it Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, I don't have any plans for next Friday, so I can do that. I can go pretty late. If need be. I don't really want to go past like 1 a.m. my time, but like if things really go that long, that's okay. But yeah. Yeah, I'll check out the Twitter and get the Discord thing going. I just other things. Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. Cool. Okay, cool. Should be good. All right, continuing. It thus remains unclear how we are to understand. Yeah. Yeah, for me, I'm no good at trivia. I may go very quick. I'll be like, B? Final answer? And I'm out. I suspect some of the rest of you are going to be good, though. Yeah. Alright. Thus, it remains unclear how we are to understand the notion of knowing how to use a reason. However, this may not be for Lord's purpose. This may not matter for Lord's purpose. Yeah, I think Jovilli's gonna like destroy us. That's exactly what I think is gonna happen, and I kind of suspect CJ is kind of smart too. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up like a CJ Jovilli battle. But that's okay. I don't mind losing to them. uh, what? None of this matters for Lord's purposes. MIT versus ASU though. Yeah, basically. You know, that's okay. I don't need to know anything anymore. I'm perfectly happy knowing nothing. So, uh, like, what does it take for like Twitch success? I wish I knew that. Like, what does it become like a Twitch like super streamer? I wish I knew that now. That would be kind of fun. But like, yeah. Okay, it's cool. All right, yeah. Thanks for stopping by. This should be good next week. So thanks for setting it up too. It'll be good. All right. Bye, Bloop. It thus remains unclear how we are to understand the notion of knowing how to use a reason. I'm still a little worried about this. This seems very quick on like, all right, so we've got two reasons and they're competing, and some reasons do like dying due to salmonella poisoning seems much more important than eating a tasty meal that will eventually kill you by salmonella poisoning. I mean, what? How are we to understand the notion of how to use a reason? You know, yeah, it's unclear, but the thing is, like, imminent death due to like fish poison does seem like, yeah, it's not clear, but I don't think it's something could be said there. So This might be a little fast, but this may not matter for Lord's purposes, or the authors here. This is because Lord also elucidates the notion of knowing how to use a reason by appeal to certain dispositions. He thus has the option of directly analyzing possession in terms of these dispositions rather than going via know-how. For example, he could propose possession D, disposition to possession. What it is for agent A to possess R as a reason to phi is, in part, for A to be disposed to phi when R is a reason to phi, and be disposed to revise phi when R ceases to be reason to phi. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's going to work, but whatever. However, this account is also open to objection. Consider again a version of Lois's case in which Lois possesses the fact that the fish contains salmonella as a reason to refrain from eating the fish. Of course, Lois might also know that the fish will be tasty, which is a reason to eat it. According to possession D, Lois possesses this reason only if she is disposed to eat the fish, when in fact the fish will be tasty is a reason to eat it. But this disposition doesn't look like a good disposition to have. After all, it might lead her to eat the fish even though she knows it contains salmonella. It is surprising that possessing this reason requires her to have this liability of a disposition. Yeah, so it seems like it's just once removed with this disposition thing. But we'll see. This worry might seem overstated. After all, if Lois possesses the fact that the fish contains salmonella as a reason to refrain from eating the fish, she'll also be disposed to refrain from eating the fish. Her dispositions will clash, and so at least one won't be manifested. So yeah, but doesn't this just recapitulate the same problem here? However, this clash of dispositions can only be expected to prevent her from eating the fish if her dispositions are sensitive to the weights of the respective reasons. Yeah. What she needs are dispositions to refrain from eating the fish when the fact that it contains salmonella is a decisive reason to refrain, or to eat the fish only when the fact that it is tasty is at least a sufficient reason to eat the fish. These dispositions are indeed good dispositions to have, but they must be distinguished from the dispositions which, according to possession D, are partly constitutive of possessing reasons. This suggests the following revision to possession D. Possession D star. What it is for an agent A to possess R as a reason to phi is, in part, for A to be disposed to phi when R is a sufficient reason to phi, and be disposed to revise phi when R ceases to be a sufficient reason to phi. Yeah. The problem with this possession D star is that reasons are not sufficient or insufficient simplicator. They are only sufficient or insufficient relative to sets of reasons. The fact that the fish is tasty might be a sufficient reason to eat it relative to a set of reasons which only contain the fact that the fish is tasty and say that it costs $10. But it might be insufficient relative to a set of reasons which also contains the fact that the fish contains salmonella. Which set of reasons should we take possession D to refer to? The only plausible answer seems to be the set of reasons you possess. But then possession D is circular. It defines what it is to possess a reason by reference to the reasons you possess. So while I claim I'm moved by Lord's case against purely epistemic accounts of possession, I am not yet convinced he has found the right way to move beyond them. Yeah, I mean, it's fair, but again, like, how do you weight this? You have to say, well, you weight it by the one that's heavier, and then, well, how do you know the one's heavier? It's the one that you have. It's like, well, if you get sick and die, that's technically bad, and so it's not technically bad, it's just bad. It's also technically bad. But then eating is somehow weighs less than that, but then you get into a circular, well, how do you know which is which? So you don't have that. I don't know. I mean, I feel like reasons are not sufficient or insufficient simplicator. Yeah, but don't we have like classes of reasons? Like sick and dying is bad. No one likes sick and dying. That's something maybe everyone can agree on. No one likes getting sick and dying. Maybe there's a few masochists out there. I don't know. That's like their ideal thing. And then like eating a tasty meal is like good, but like it's not at the same level of sick and dying. Hey, what's up, Sirkian? Oh, you're taking it back. Thank you so much for your giving and taking of my Dorito chips. I don't like you now. I want my Dorito chip back. Bah. Okay, we were talking about poisonous fish though. So you don't want to eat poisonous fish, although you do. I wonder if there's like anyone's ever got a poisonous Dorito chip before. Maybe it happens. Yeah, I know. I'm slow. Everyone's gonna beat me next week. I'm not even poison Doritos. Oh my god, yes. Everyone's gonna beat me next week at trivia, and I'm not even like a good Minesweeper player. Just like pathetic. Everyone's fast. It's okay. Poison Doritos, yeah. Oh, we should like slip Bubba Bloop a poison Dorito. That's my plan for winning next week. Poison Doritos. Well, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. I'm just finishing up a paper on reasons and intentions, and this is okay. Well, no, of course we can't tell them. Why would we tell them we were going to poison them? That'd be a terrible idea. It's a good idea to poison them. A bad idea to tell them we're going to poison them. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's even a better idea, because then he would be afraid of it, and it'd be even more exciting when we do poison him. There we go. Now that's a plan. So, and then when we don't poison him, he'll be all freaked out, and I'll win the competition. Okay, conclusion. I have argued that possessed reasons may not be as important as Lord suggests. Lord's view that that what rationality requires. Well, I'm reading philosophy at the moment, so it's like a big brain stuff. Lord's view that what rationality requires and permits is that you react in ways that are appropriate given your possessed reasons faces a serious problem explaining the rationality of inconsistent intentions. Yeah, see, that's the whole thing. Make him live in paranoia, and then when it doesn't happen, he'll just be freaked out and be like, you lied to me. And I'll be like, yes, but it was effective. Yeah, see, we're going to give him some irrationally based on inconsistent intentions. This is like the entire goal of my life now. To cause irrationally based on inconsistent intentions in other people. They thought my intentions were inconsistent, but it turns out I was the rational one for messing with their head. So. You scared to cross me? Nah. You'd have to really piss me off. I don't get pissed off easy. But I don't suggest doing that either. But yeah. I mean, if you stole all my Dorito chips, maybe I'd consider it, but probably not. One of Lord's central arguments for his view that obligations are determined by possessed reasons rests on a claim credit which is subject to counterexamples, and Lord's account of possessed reasons also faces difficulties. For these reasons, I am yet to be fully convinced by some of the central claims of Lord's book. No, I'm not going to hurt anybody. Claims of Lord's book. Nevertheless, I've learned a great deal by working through it. Well, that's a nice, very way to end. Diplomatic. This paper. No, I'm not hurting anybody. No, I'm gonna reach out through the Twitch and do some sort of spooky Halloween thing. Okay. Topics going back over 10 years. Wow, people are in an argument. But yeah, so this is a fun paper, and let's see what happens here. So okay, so basically we've got this setup of permission and reasons for doing things, and basically we're getting the old argument of the absolute objective things versus relative. And so what's happening is Lord's presenting a perspectivalist perspective on this. Yes. Well, the trick is always to scare the people, but you don't actually have to do anything. You can scare the people, and so it's I'm not actually gonna poison him. I don't have any poison. But they don't. As long as they don't know that, that's how you have to threaten someone. They have to believe you're gonna do it. Oh dear, no melting snowmen. No one's getting poisoned. That would break terms of service. But yeah, okay. So we've got the old argument in this paper of just the absolute versus the relatives, and so Lord tries to make the perspectivalist position, and then. The problem with that, according to this author, Jonathan Way, it looks like, is that basically you get some funky results. You need to be able to, you can't properly weigh your intentions to poison people or not poison people, as it were, at the moment. So if you have these two intentions, if it's relative, then you can't decide which one it is, and for the various reasons the author went through here. They say it doesn't work. Now the problem is, of course, then I'm sure this, as the argument's going back and forth, it's kind of how these things go back and forth. Now the question is, what are the possessed reasons, and like how does this actually ground itself in like giving you credit for having reasoned in a like credit worthy way? And again, so if you get credit and then you get the partial credit, then of course then again you get the partial credit versus full credit, you get the relative again, and it causes more problems. You can't get an objective reason to an objective understanding of reason in the perspectivalist picture, and then you lose all the reasons. And this is just sort of like the author is just going through a bunch of cases in this short paper, showing that all the different sort of iterations fail to the same sort of problem. But this is a fun paper, and so it's like, do I know this stuff? No. But do I know kind of what's going on in this? Yeah, because this is a clear enough paper that shows, look, there are sort of these sort of ways of looking through coming back one way to the other way when you have like this sort of absolute like objectivist view versus the perspectivalist view. So okay, that's it for now. It was a fun little paper, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Stay safe out there, everyone. Good night.